The myth surrounding the Bismarck. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and slowly exhale. Imagine the North Atlantic. Dark, cold, boundless. Legend has it that somewhere out there, a ghost ship still glides through the fog. A giant of steel, cursed, unsinkable, rejected by friend and foe alike. They call it the Bismarck. They say it wasn't sunk by the enemy, but by its own men, that it dragged itself down into the depths out of pride, that 2,000 souls are still trapped beneath the waves, and that on stormy nights you can hear its cannons rumbling. Unbeatable, unsinkable, unforgettable. But what if these myths are just the shadows of a more complicated truth? Tonight, we descend to the wrecks, to the facts, and to the ghosts of one of the most famous and darkest naval battles in the history of the Second World War. Close your eyes and come with us. Accompany Wonderworld on this incredible journey in search of the true story of the Bismarck. Long before the Bismarck became a legend, there was another ship that amazed the world, the HMS Hood, Britain's largest warship of the Second World War and the pride of the fleet. Over 260 meters long, 4 huge turbines, 30 knots fast. Its 15-inch guns towered into the sky like the fingers of a titan. It was not just a warship. It was a symbol. It was launched in 1918. For over a decade, there was no ship in the world larger or more powerful than Hood. The Americans, Japanese, and Germans had nothing comparable that could rival this ship. In the 1920s and 30s, the Hood traveled around the world, visiting every remote corner of the empire. Over 700,000 visitors stepped onto its deck in peacetime. They saw gleaming brass, rows of sailors standing to attention, endless corridors. For them, it was clear: Britannia rules the waves. A floating promise. As long as the Hood exists, the empire is safe. But deep in German shipyards, another myth was growing. In halls full of steel, showers of sparks and sketches, a new metal creature was being created. The Bismarck. She was more modern than the Hood. She had heavier guns, 38 centimeters, sophisticated armor, a hull that looked like a fortress. In newspapers and propaganda, she was soon portrayed as virtually unsinkable. A new promise: this ship will dethrone the old British pride. It will take away the empire's power. A sign: we are here and we will not back down. Around the 18th and 19th of May, 1941, the Bismarck and the Prinz Eugen set sail for Operation Reinigung. During these days, the hunt begins. Radio reconnaissance, the search for British ships. 2 nations, 2 myths. The old Queen Hood, the new Titan Bismarck, and the Atlantic, which watched both silently. It is deep in many places, turbulent, inaccessible, and dark. Some parts are only safely navigable in the summer months. But the situation is different. Weather conditions are not taken into account. The meeting of the two giants was to take place in the Denmark Strait, over 300 miles west of Iceland. There, the first myth will be shattered. May 1941. Europe is burning. Supply lines in the Atlantic are vital for the population of the kingdom, and every German capital ship is a deadly threat to Britain. When the Bismarck sets sail with the heavy cruiser Prinz Eugen, the British Navy is immediately alerted. The response is clear. It must be stopped. On the 23rd of May, 1941, the British heavy cruisers Suffolk and Norfolk sight the two German ships, Bismarck and Prinz Eugen. In the Denmark Strait, between Iceland and Greenland, radar contact is initially maintained. On the 24th of May, 1941, the paths of the four ships cross. Hood and Prince of Wales against Bismarck and Prinz Eugen. It is early. Visibility is poor. Fog, spray, and smoke merge into a gray veil. On board the Hood, the atmosphere is tense. Many of the men are young, 16 years old, and have been sailing on the ship for many months. They know stories about their ship, about its voyage around the world, its fame. Now they stand at their guns, in the ammunition chambers, on the bridge. On the Bismarck, officers observe the British silhouettes through rangefinders. Men at the guns wait for their order. The engines vibrate deep in the hull. The distance shrinks. Angles are calculated. One last correction. Then, fire. The air explodes in thunder. Muzzle flashes light up the sky. Shells, heavy as cars, fly in high, invisible arcs through the morning sky. The Hood fires. The Bismarck fires. The Prince of Wales, the Prinz Eugen, all spit fire into the fog. Columns of water shoot into the air. Steel splinters. The ocean boils. Then, a moment that burns itself into history. A heavy shell from the Bismarck hits the Hood in the area of the aft ammunition chambers. Perhaps it penetrates the relatively weakly protected deck armor. Perhaps it triggers a devastating chain reaction. Historical records later reveal the 24th of May, 1941, Battle of the Denmark Strait, early morning, around 5:52. Start of battle between Hood, Prince of Wales, and Bismarck, Prinz Eugen, around 6 to 6:01. The decisive hit on the Hood. It explodes and sinks within about 3 minutes. Date of the sinking of the Hood, the 24th of May, 1941. What observers see is only the result. A dazzling flash, a huge explosion. Flames shoot out from the middle of the ship. The pride of the Empire is torn apart from within. Within just 3 minutes, the Hood breaks apart and disappears into the waves. Of 1,418 men, only 3 survive. 3. Imagine the silence that follows. Where a huge ship once stood, now only debris, smoke, and oil dance on the waves. With the Hood, it is not just a warship that sinks. A myth goes down with it. But at the same time, a new one is born. The Bismarck, the ship that destroyed the Hood. Militarily, the sinking of the Hood is a victory. Psychologically, it is an earthquake. The hunter becomes the hunted. In the radio rooms of the Royal Navy, terse messages rush over the lines. But one message stands above all others. Find the Bismarck and sink it. The Bismarck itself is not unscathed. The Prince of Wales has hit it. A fuel tank has been damaged. Oil is leaking and leaving a dark trail across the sea, a scar on the waves that betrays it. Captain Ernst Lindman and Fleet Commander Lieutenant decide to set course for France. There, they hope the damage can be repaired. Towards Brest, towards safety. But the Atlantic is now a chessboard, and the Bismarck is the piece that everyone is chasing. British ships cross their paths. Aircraft take off from the air and from carriers. Radio messages crackle. Radar devices spin. Maps are covered with coarse lines. In the minds of many Britons, an image begins to form. The Bismarck as a ghost ship that appears in the fog, strikes, and disappears again. But the sobering truth is harsher. It is damaged, losing fuel, and very real. Time is working against it. Like a wounded animal bleeding out and leaving traces behind, the Bismarck is heading across the Atlantic towards France. Then, an unexpected opponent appears on the scene. The outdated swordfish biplane torpedo bombers from the aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal. Slow, fabric-covered airplanes. In the age of modern warfare, they seem like relics. But sometimes, it's not the most modern technology that wins the day. It's what simply works. The swordfish pilots fly low over the waves, through rain and anti-aircraft fire. Black shells explode in the air. Fountains of water shoot up. And yet, they get closer. They drop their torpedoes. Heavy metal bodies that plunge into the sea with a dull thud and slide under the surface towards the Bismarck. Several hits. One of them strikes the rudder system. The explosion damages the rudder so badly that it jams. The Bismarck can barely steer. It tries to countersteer, to work the propellers, to correct its course. But a battleship is not a small boat. The giant no longer obeys completely. A monster of steel, now steered by wind, waves, and a blocked rudder. The hunter has finally become the prey. The night of the 27th of May, 1941, is black and cold. Destroyers attack with torpedoes, test the defenses, maintain contact. On board the Bismarck, many know that France is close, but not close enough. The enemy is here, close enough. In the corridors, under red combat lights, conversations arise that no one records. About home, about families, about the question, will there be a tomorrow? Officers discuss what to do if the ship can no longer be saved. There are regulations. Destroy secret documents. Make codes unusable. And, when all hope is lost, scuttle the ship. Thus, a new myth is born. The Bismarck will never surrender. If it sinks, it will be by its own hand. 1st of May, 1941, the morning of the final end of a legend. The morning is gray and dark. Menacing silhouettes appear on the horizon. King George V, Rodney, plus cruisers such as the Norfolk and Dorsetshire. The Bismarck, difficult to maneuver, cannot evade them. The distance is reduced. Rangefinders scan the gray horizon. Angles are corrected. Then, the heavy British guns thunder. Shells strike the sea, the hull, the superstructure of the Bismarck. She responds. Her own guns fire back as long as they can. But with every hit, she becomes blinder, deafer, slower. Superstructures are torn away. Fires break out. Fire control stations are destroyed. Gun turrets fall silent. The deck is transformed into a burning battlefield of steel and splinters. Inside, men fight against fires, against invading water, against despair. They cannot see the enemy. They only hear the crashes, feel the tremors. Slowly, the Bismarck loses its form as a ship and becomes a burning wreck in motion. And somewhere in those minutes, deep inside, a decision is made. The self-sinking is initiated. Flood valves are opened. Explosive charges are detonated. The pride of the German Reich shall not fall into British hands as a half-floating torso. Outside, however, the British continue to fire. Their shells and torpedoes do what they were built to do. No one sinks the Bismarck alone. Their own men accelerate what the British guns have already made irreversible. The ship heels more heavily. The list increases. Metal slides, breaks, crashes. Some men jump into the water. Others are trapped. Some remain at their stations until the end. The Colossus tips over. The hull rolls, showing its wounded flank for one last moment, and disappears into the darkness. Over 2,200 men were on board. Around 110 survive. The ocean closes over the Bismarck, just as it had closed over the Hood days before. After the war, many questions remain unanswered. Reports contradict each other. Witnesses remember differently. Was the Bismarck sunk by British fire, or mainly by self-scuttling? Was it ever unsinkable? And what really lies down there at a depth of almost 4,800 meters? Decades later, an expedition sets out for the Bismarck, a return to the ghosts. In 1989, an expedition led by Robert Ballard finds the wreck of the Bismarck. Others follow, including one with James Cameron. Cameras descend into the depths. Beams of light cut through the darkness. And after decades, the giant reappears. Silent, torn apart, but still imposing. They see the Bismarck lies upright on the seabed. Large parts of the superstructure are destroyed. Towers have been torn from their barbettes. Impact marks from heavy shells are clearly visible. But you can also see areas of the hull show signs of internal explosions, of open flood valves, of what is known as self-scuttling. A sober analysis reveals the British ships destroyed the Bismarck as a fighting warship. It was militarily dead before it sank. The German explosions and flooding accelerated its demise and ensured that it was completely lost. The myths of only the enemy and only ourselves are dispelled. The truth lies somewhere in between. Today, the Bismarck rests in eternal darkness, far out in the Atlantic, west of France. The Hood lies in the Denmark Strait, torn apart in pieces far to the north. Two graves of steel. The legends about the unsinkable Bismarck, about the pure ghost ship, about the clean, heroic death by self-scuttling. They fade, the clearer the picture becomes. What remains is something else, something deeper, a memorial to hubris, to the illusion of invulnerability, to thousands of men who died not as myths, but as human beings. Now, with your eyes closed, as you slowly float back over the North Atlantic, you see no ghost fleet. You see two silent cathedrals of metal, slowly embraced by the sea. No more cannons, no more orders, only silence. The Bismarck was never immortal. It was never a demon. It was a ship, built by humans, steered by humans, sunk by humans. The myths we weave around it tell us less about it and more about us. Take another deep breath and exhale. If you like, you can now pull your blanket up a little higher and relax, knowing that even the greatest legends eventually come to rest in the darkness of history. Join Wonderworld again on one of its next journeys, deep into history, as you've never experienced it before.